it's important that we don't just talk about things, but we do what we can to live them. Challenging
Yeah,
as that is in the kind of world that we live in, which is specifically structured to stop us living them, to keep us in fear, to keep us in ignorance, to keep us in a state of little me perception. But you
yeah,
know, if we're going to break through this wall of deceit, this wall of perceptual manipulation, then we have to we have to live our talk as best we can, and crucial to that is letting go of fear,
yeah,
fear of what other people think of us, which is the great prison that most people live in, which makes most people not live their life, not live their truth, not live their sense of reality, sense of who they are, but to live someone else's version of what others believe they should be. It's this, it's this psychological fascism where people insist that everyone else lives their life and operates within the opinions and belief systems that they have. That is this situation we're in where the few can control the many. Of course, the many
mm,
control each other. You know, when you and what we're looking at now, of course, is an increasingly extreme expression of that in what we call political correctness and all that goes with it, where people's opinions now are being attacked for being just mildly different to
mm,
the prevailing narrative and the prevailing norm. So,
yeah,
from my perspective, and I've done this big time in a new book I've just got out called "Everything You Need to Know But It's Never Been Told." I've taken this stuff head on because if the problem is succumbing to this psychological fascism, to silence us, and to keep us from living our truth and instead acting the truth of others just to have a quiet life. Well, if that's how we got into this mess, then how we get out of it, surely, is to reverse that and not to be intimidated, not to have others dictate what we should say and not say, and to say the unsayable and to do the
yeah,
undoable. See, we can talk forever in esoteric concepts, but in the end, that perceptual change that we call the awakening has to be expressed in terms of action, of
yeah.
living the words, not
Living
just
it. Yeah,
speaking them.
that's right. That's right. And once again, as far as I'm concerned, you set the best example of this. You know, you've been, I like to use the term screaming bloody murder about what's really going on and our innate, dormant power since the early 90s, you know. And I mean, we're going to get into all sorts of, very pertinent present time discussions. But really, this is the most important part of our talk. You know, you've acquired this unshakable knowing that you got and started to grow within you. As far as I'm aware, seemingly after that, what you explained years ago, some sort of activation process that you experienced in Peru, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, it
Yeah.
started. It started in 1990 when I saw a psychic after a series of coincidences I never intended to, but I went
Mm,
there in the end because something strange had been going on in my life for about a year. Every time I was in a room alone, it felt I wasn't alone, and eventually I went
mm,
to see this psychic to see if she could understand what was happening to me, and that kicked it all off. I mean, that's when it became conscious. I was on some kind of journey here. But the key for me, the difference between being in the prison cell of perceptual servitude
Mm.
to others, and being free of that, both in what we say and what we do. It's
Yeah.
simply a transformation of perception of self-identity. It is
Exactly.
that simple. You know, what
Yeah.
if you look at the way a human life is lived, it is from cradle to grave a perceptual download externally delivered, of a perception of self, a perception of reality, a perception of the world, a perception of what is and isn't, what's possible and not possible, what reality is and what it's not. It's from the earliest age. First of all, when you come out of the womb, immediately your parents who've been through this same process are influencing your perceptions. Then you go into the education system, what passes for it, and that is downloading now throughout your formative years the official version of everything. And on top of that, you've got the media 24/7 giving you the same basic version of everything, what I call the postage stamp consensus. All your friends and associates who've been through the same system or are still going through the same system and process, and have accepted it as real, they are your peers pressuring you to conform to what they've conformed to and not to question it. Then these people at the end of the education process go off into the world to become the journalists, the scientists, the doctors, the politicians, the CEOs, etc. And they run the institutions from the same perception that they picked up, that core download of normal, the postage stamp consensus. And so they're all telling each other that this download of normal and real that they've taken on is how things are. And basically, from cradle to grave, if you don't go outside the mainstream everything, all you're hearing is confirmation of a certain perception of self and reality. And so if you fall for that, then you will think that who you are is your name, your job, your color, your religion, your life story, your income bracket. All these labels are who you are, when they are just experiences that the real you is having, and the real you is simply a state of awareness, a point of attention within infinite awareness, which in the end we are all expressions of. Now that point of attention can be the size of a pea in terms of your perception of everything, or it can be an expanded perception. Either you're looking down the wrong end down a telescope from this point of observation, this point of attention with infinite awareness, or you're looking at a vast panorama. It's just how much we're prepared to open our minds to the greater consciousness, the greater possibility, the greater infinity. And to do that, how much we are prepared to question and reject and override that incessant perceptual program that we are subjected to from cradle to grave. And what I see happening, and I've seen it happening more than ever before on this world speaking tour I've been on for 18 months, is that not only vast numbers of people are now going through this process of questioning the program. Not everyone's awakening and saying, I'm all that is, has been, and ever can be. It's at different levels. But just it's a start, just to say, why should I believe a government that's constantly lied to me? Why should I believe what they're going to say next? Why don't we question what we're being told about what this event is about and why it happened in this event, etc. That's a start. But if you go on that road and you start questioning and making things stand up and justify themselves with evidence and with intelligence, what starts to happen is the whole damn system in all its multiple forms and layers starts to crumble. The house of cards crumbles because basically the house of cards is standing there because the people are holding it together by their belief in its credibility, by their belief in the fact that it's real. Once you start to question, that cement starts to crack, which is human perception. And you say, hold on a second, this doesn't make sense. Why do they do that? Why don't they do it this way? Why did that happen? Why didn't they do this instead? And you start to realize that there is, we live in a world, not in terms of society transforming events, not in a world of random events, but in a world of carefully planned events which are pushing us into a certain direction, a direction of more and more control, more and more oppression, more and more destruction of freedom of speech. And at the end of that, what they're planning, and we're seeing it unfolding now, is the end of the human mind through connection and being overridden by artificial intelligence. Now, if they're going to do that, then they have to do two things. They have to keep us in ignorance that that's where it's going and why, and they have to control information that we receive so that we will perceive everything the way they want us to. This is why you're seeing the internet giants, all controlled in the end by the same people, like Facebook, Google, Twitter, all of these things, increasingly censoring anything that's alternative to the official narrative. Because what's been happening, and you'll know this, people listening to this program will know this, what's been happening with the emergence of what's called the alternative media, though that's a great spectrum as well, is that people have had access to information they didn't have access to before. And for vast numbers of people who've heard it, it's made more sense than what they've been told all their lives. And there is now this desperation to put the lid on the free flow of alternative information to stop this process happening. But and this whole political correctness scenario is about intimidating people into silence so they will not speak this alternative way of seeing everything because they fear the consequences of condemnation and abuse if they do so. And that's why, if we really do believe in the fact that a difference has to be made, if we really do believe that we are just consciousness having an experience, then we shouldn't hand over our power to the experience by fearing an experience of ridicule and abuse. No one said it was going to be easy, but we need to stand up and speak our truth, no matter what the consequences. That's the only way anything's ever changed.